I'm on. I'm on. All right. And I just closed the window with the bit that I was going to read. So, what's up, everybody? KMO here. I can't say I was stood up exactly because I got warning that I just didn't see in my email. I thought I was going to have an in-studio guest, so I prepared nothing. Got here to discover no guest, but somebody did send me an email telling me that there would be no guest, and I just didn't read it. Because that's how I roll. In the time that I could have been preparing, I was actually watching YouTube. I was watching Shoe on Head. Why? Because she's cute and, in my opinion, funny. And she's talking about stuff that I kind of care about. Although the best video was one where she was just reading hate mail while really baked. And she's not a regular smoker, so she was, affected by being really baked. But let's see. Let's go New York Post. Broke men. Women can't find men who make as much money as they do. This is something that Shoe on Head was reading and responding to. So, Colin, if you would, throw up, there it is. Women are struggling to find men who make as much money as they do. You are dismissed. There we go. A good man is hard to find, especially in this economy. The country is facing a crisis of broke dudes, according to new research from Cornell University. This is from 2019, by the way. So you may have heard about the broke dudes. The country is facing a crisis of broke dudes, according to new research from Cornell University, and it's left successful ladies single and disgruntled. Sorry, ladies, I know it sucks to have money and not be able to find a dude who's got as much, if not more, money. In the study, published in the Journal of Marriage and Family, Cornell sociologists explored America's declining marriage rate. They discovered a lack of financially eligible bachelors. There are shortages. Oh, come on, New York Post with your moving headlines. There are shortages of economically attractive men, lead study author Daniel T. Lichter tells the Post. Although we like to think marriage is based on love, we like to think marriage is based on love. It's also fundamentally an economic transaction, and women want partners whom they can call their equals. Lichter, who has been studying marriage for 30 years, says the gig economy and lack of good jobs have contributed to the dearth of well-to-do dudes. So has the fact that women are outpacing men educationally, upending the age-old dominance of the male breadwinner over the past 5 to 10 years. Now it's the case that more highly educated women are marrying down, says Lichter. Men have to get with the program. I wonder what that means. What do they have to do in order to get with what do they have to do to demonstrate, to signal that they are down with the program? Single New Yorker Gina Thibodeau has some theories of her own about the fella famine. I find generally that dudes these days just do less across the board, says the nurse practitioner. Their parents have coddled them and taken care of them, and they just don't go out there and make more money. The 38-year-old Upper East Sider stresses that she's not looking for anything outrageous, safety and security as far as finances go, but she's still coming up empty on dates. She says it's because the men she goes out with don't feel the innate push to succeed that she does. I think for years they've always just taken their role in society for granted, and I think they're just getting lazy culturally, she says. Morgan Jordan, a staff administrator at a South Carolina college, says she's also struggling to find a partner on her level. I don't even consider myself all that successful. I just make a living wage and I'm comfortable, says the 32-year-old who lives in upstate South Carolina and recently paid off her student loans. That's pretty comfortable. But the majority of guys she meets can't say the same. Most men that I encounter, they're really underemployed and they can't seem to make a living themselves, she says, adding that many of them are wildly in debt and intimidated by her stability. You can tell that some men really want to be more traditional breadwinners, says Jordan. Boston single Jake Rivas gets where they're coming from. My protective partner's income is something I consider. Oh, my prospective partner's income is something I consider, says the 28-year-old, who works as a staff caregiver at a group home. Being on the lower end myself only serves to feed insecurity. Graduate student Isaac Suarez says he's not turned off by a woman who means business, but he has found that his relationships tend to last longer when he makes a similar amount to his partner. I've dated women with money, and full-time professional women tend to be busier, and it's more difficult to find time to spend together, says the 26-year-old who lives in Portland, Oregon. Thibodeau says she knows it's not necessarily a guy's fault if he's struggling financially. Still, given the circumstances, she's had to devise a plan B for her future. If Mr. Right doesn't come along soon, she may just shack up with some lady friends at her professional level. Maybe in a few years we'll move in together, she says. They're successful, and I like them. Alrighty. There we go. Poor ladies have too much money for the broke-ass, underachieving men that just seem to be the ones that show up on the dating apps. I don't know. Maybe you're looking in the wrong place, or maybe maybe the gender wage gap isn't quite the thing that I'm told it is. If women who make good money are having trouble finding men who make money as much as they do. Colin has a different theory, though. Colin's theory was, well, if a man's making money, he's got his choice of women. Why is he going to choose you? So, I'm not saying I endorse that theory. I just thought it was worth repeating. Hikane in the chat says, somebody tell KMO that he has a mouse right there and doesn't have to use the trackpad. Here's the thing. This is my main computer, and I use a trackpad. Actually, I can't say this is my main computer. This is my main visual art computer. I have another computer at home, which is my main audio production computer. And it has a mouse. In fact, it has a video editing mouse. It's a vertical mouse. All right. Somebody give me something to talk about in the chat, or I'm going to find something else to read. Glenn Greenwald is he's on fire these days, so it's always safe for me to go to Glenn Greenwald's Substack and just read whatever's at the top. All righty. Oh, here we go. Using the mouse. Glenn Greenwald. Let me read first. I'm already subscribed. I'm just not logged in on this computer. All right. Anthony Blinken continues to lecture the world on values his administration aggressively violates. How can you feign anger over others' attacks on a free press when you imprison Assange as punishment for his vital revelations about U.S. officials? All right. So I bet Hikane will have a comment on this. So I don't watch a whole lot of TV news, so I guess this is Anthony Blinken. I hear his name all the time, but I don't see his face. Oh, where's the actual text of the article? There we go. Continuing his world tour, doling out righteous lectures to the world, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken on Thursday proclaimed in a sermon you have to hear to believe that few things are more sacred in a democracy than independent journalism. Speaking to Radio Free Europe, Blinken paid homage to World Press Freedom Day, claimed that the United States stands strongly with independent journalism, explained that the foundation of any democratic system entails holding leaders accountable and informing citizens, and warned that countries that deny freedom of the press are countries that don't have a lot of confidence in themselves or their systems. Preach it, Anthony. The rhetorical cherry on top of that cake came when he posed this question. What is to be afraid of in informing... This is great. What is to be afraid of in informing the people and holding leaders accountable? The Secretary of State then issued this vow. Everywhere journalism and freedom of the press is challenged, we will stand with journalists and with that freedom. Since I know that I would be extremely skeptical if someone told me that those words had just come out against... Let's try that again. Since I know that I would be extremely skeptical if someone told me that those words had just come out of Blinken's mouth, I present here with the unedited 1 minute, 52-second video clip of him saying exactly this. All right.
You know, we just had, as you know, I'm sure, World Press Freedom Day, and we spent some time talking to journalists from around the world who are operating in countries where they're under threat. Their rights to practice journalism, to do so safely and openly, are being challenged by many different countries. And unfortunately, we see that, of course, in Russia, and we see that directly with regard to Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. And what I can tell you is that the United States stands strongly with independent journalism. It is the foundation of any democratic system, holding leaders accountable, informing people, informing citizens. It's very, very basic. And I think that countries that don't do that, that deny freedom of the press, are countries that don't have a lot of confidence in themselves or in their systems. What is to be afraid of in informing the people and in holding leaders accountable? So we're going to stand everywhere journalism and freedom of the press is challenged. We will stand with journalists and with that freedom. And by the way, I'm on the receiving end sometimes of reports and commentary and articles that I may not appreciate in the moment, but I will do everything I possibly can to stand up for the right of journalists to do their jobs, because the job that you do is profoundly important to the lives of our citizens.
All righty. So I'll continue reading, but first, Joshua asks, ever think of marketing ideas involving NFTs? I said, yes. He says, would you like to share just a few? Well, I only have one. I am a visual artist, and I've tried to make NFTs, non-fungible tokens, with the Cardano or ADA cryptocurrency. And so far they didn't sell very well, and that's because, well, I'm not very well known. You have to have you have to have some visibility in order to be an attractive producer of NFTs. The place where I was selling them, I asked them, what's the best-selling thing that you've got? And it's like very simple, sort of like 8-bit looking graphics of characters, and they're in the form of like trading cards, like Pokemon cards or something. I hate to sound like an old guy, but I don't get it. I don't know how to participate in that. But I'm not saying that, that's my final stand. I would be happy to work with somebody if I could, lend visual elements to somebody else's NFT brainchild and get a cut. I would be all over that. Speaking of which, this is the comic. It's really a web comic, but we've done enough that we've got a couple issues here, and they will be for sale. The print issues will be available very, very soon, I'm told. And when they are, I'll let everybody know. But right now, you can get them for Kindle or Comixology on Amazon. So just go to Amazon and type in GEBB, and then just to help the algorithm out, space comic. You could actually type out the word space comic. It would probably help. But just GAB Comic will get you there. So that was, if you live in the U.S., that was your Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken. Is it Anthony or Antony? It's Antony Blinken. All righty. The rhetorical cherry on top. I already read that part. Let's see. Hey, Colin, would you go back to the article? Thank you. That the Biden administration is such a stalwart believer in the sanctity of independent journalism and is devoted to defending it wherever it is threatened would come as a great surprise to many, many people. Among them would be Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks and the person responsible for breaking more major stories about the actions of top U.S. officials than virtually all U.S. journalists employed in the corporate press combined. Currently, Assange is sitting in his cell in the British high security Balmarsh prison because the Biden administration is not only trying to extradite him to stand trial on espionage charges for having published documents embarrassing to the U.S. government and the Democratic Party, but also has appealed a British judge's January ruling rejecting that extradition request. Now, to be honest, as with so many things, Biden is merely continuing the Trump policy. Although in this case, I think Trump was just continuing the Obama policy, which is to say that all three presidents don't really have much of a say. This is just the deep state doing what the deep state does. Am I allowed to say deep state? Okay. I mean, I'm asking Colin, of course, you know. Where are we? The Biden administration is doing all of this, noted the New York Times, that bastion of independent journalism, despite the fact that, quote, human rights and civil liberties groups have asked the administration to abandon the effort to prosecute Mr. Assange, arguing that the case could establish a precedent posing a grave threat to press freedoms, close quote. Damn, New York Times. Sometimes you actually print something that I can agree with. Press freedoms, exactly the value which Blinken just righteously spent the week celebrating and vowing to uphold. Alrighty. Got my sarcastic voice on today. You like it? It was the Trump Department of Justice which brought these charges against Assange after then CIA Director Mike Pompeo claimed in a 2017 speech that WikiLeaks has long pretended that America's First Amendment freedoms shield them from justice. And then warned, they may have believed that, but they are wrong. Pompeo added, invoking the mentality of all states that persecute and imprison those who report effectively on them, that to give WikiLeaks the space to crush us with misappropriated secrets is a perversion of what our great Constitution stands for. It ends now. But like so many other Trump policies concerning press freedoms, from defending the Trump Department of Justice's use of warrants to obtain journalists' telephone records to demanding Edward Snowden be kept in exile, by keeping Reality Winner and Daniel Hale imprisoned, top Biden officials have long been fully on board with Assange's persecution. Indeed, they have been at the forefront of the effort to destroy basic press freedoms, not just for WikiLeaks, but for journalists generally. It was Joe Biden who called Assange a high-tech terrorist in 2010. It was the Obama administration that convened a years-long grand jury to try and prosecute Assange. It was Senator Dianne Feinstein, Democrat of California, who urged Assange's prosecution under the Espionage Act years before Trump was in office, and it was Blinken's colleague on the Obama National Security Team, Hillary Clinton, who praised the Department of Justice for its prosecution of Assange. All of this was intended as punishment for Assange's revelations of rampant wrongdoing by the U.S. government and its allies and adversary governments around the world. Alrighty. I shall not read any more there. Let's see if there's anything in the chat. Josh says, I scrapped a comic book I was writing and decided to go solo. How hard is self-publishing? He tried stealing the overall book. Now it's just sitting there. We had 36 issues. You had 36 issues of art? Damn. I suppose I gave a false impression. This is not a self-published comic book, and it's not even my IP. I write it and I draw it, but I get paid, as the work is produced, not, after the sale is made. So, yeah, I didn't publish this. I imagine that self-publishing is so hard that I would never do it. Connie says, I don't understand all the nuance to the Assange case. That stuff started when I was in middle school. So, genitals clutch, writes KMO. If you're going to spell it out like that, there's two M's. I can't say that I'm really an expert on the whole Assange thing. Assange he's Australian, not an American. He's a member of this strangely but kind of creepily influential group of people known as the Family. And they've been as I say, weirdly on the inside in Washington politics for a very long time. And really, I'm speaking out of school at this point because I don't know enough about it to really even summarize very well. But he and now Chelsea, then Bradley Manning, he gained access, at the time, gained access to a big cache of very incriminating information about the conduct of the U.S. military in Afghanistan, among other things. Parker says, didn't you self-publish your Sea Realm book, though? You know what, Parker? I did, and it was a bunch of work. I've got like 5 boxes of the damn thing in my apartment right now. Here, I'm going to call that up on Amazon, though, so people can see what you're talking about. Really, I've got to stop talking about Assange, though. I'm not prepared to talk about it. I haven't reviewed any of this information. I would just be, as they say, talking out my ass. Alrighty. Now, this is interesting. Hey, Colin, throw up the screen here. Ikane. There we go. So, this is the name of my book, Conversations on Collapse. I type it in. Oh, it is actually on the first page. This is it. Let's see. Is there a way to make that cover bigger? All right. So this is a book that I put together. It's a collection of interviews from the Sea Realm podcast. And this is from my doomer days. I was actually living at the Eco Village Training Center in Summertown, Tennessee, basically living in a cabin with, I did have electricity, but I did not have plumbing in the cabin. And while I was living there, I had these transcripts made. Some of them I paid to have made. Some of them I made myself. Some of them were generously provided by people working for free, Sea Realm listeners. I still very much appreciate their help. This cover image, 2 things. I'm going to call up a different window. Let's say Collapse, Jared Diamond. Just going to out myself here. This is Jared Diamond's far superior book, Collapse. Check the font, check the color scheme. Blatantly stolen cover design. But the photograph is by Justin Ritchie, formerly of the Extra Environmentalist podcast, now of the Energy Transition Show. And, you know, it's a house that's falling apart, but see this bit of blue sky back here in the corner? The whole sky was that beautiful blue. And I photoshopped in the glowering clouds because, you know, it's collapse. Anyway, here's the book. Look at that. 5 stars. Somebody's selling it for $8.18. Somebody's selling it for $4.26. I mean, that's less than I would ask for it. And I have 5 boxes of the darn thing. And there's me when I was skinny. Anyway. Yes, I did. Publish is a weird word. I dealt with the printer and I had that book printed. And then I had it in my possession and I used it as a prop for what I called Couchsurfing book tour. So I would just, put out the word to Sea Realm listeners, hey, who can set me up in a venue somewhere to talk to some people and maybe sell some books, and can I crash on your couch? And because many members of my audience are older and more financially responsible than I am, many of them had guest rooms to offer, not just couches. So on my couch surfing tours, I rarely slept on couches. But that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. I would do it again, but now I've got my life structured in a way that I need to stay in one place and work. All right. Joshua says, hold on, let me restate that. 36 written, 3 fully art pieces done. Yeah, working with partner, people are flaky. Let me just say, I'm flaky. Flaky AF, as the kids say. And not only are people flaky, but they're also self-justifying in their flakiness. You've been warned. Deal with humans at your peril. All right. Somebody asked me a question. Parker, since you're listening, what's on your mind these days? Hero Cone. Is this not Hikane? Is this a whole different person? I would give you couch, but I only have one and I sleep there. Yeah, I'm good, Hero Cone, so fear not. I have a couch, which is it's fine for sleeping, but I also have a bed, which I prefer. Leave the couch to the cat. So I'll talk about what's it called? Clubhouse. I did a couple videos on Clubhouse. You can find them on this channel. Actually, one of them you'll need to go to my Patreon page to find. It's patreon.com/KMO. It's unlisted. I've got a link to it on Patreon. You can click through to it. It's not behind a paywall, but I'm kind of cranky in that one and complaining, and I didn't really want it to find a very big audience, so I just not that, any of my videos really find a very big audience, except for the ones that I'm ready to disown. The antinatalist videos. Won't go there on this call or on this live stream. But Clubhouse has only been available for iPhone users until just a couple days ago. And Albert Bates, who is one of the people interviewed in that book, Conversations on Collapse, and who was very generous to have me stay at the Eco Village Training Center for 2 years, and I could have stayed longer. It was me that ended the arrangement. He is the one who invited me to join Clubhouse. And I said, well, I'd love to, but I don't have an iPhone. He says, no, they're taking Android users now. And so I got on it. And so I'm just poking around. And my first day there, I'm mostly getting into conversations or entering into rooms where people are talking about podcasting, and they're talking about podcasting as a business. And, I used to work in insurance, and this was in Arkansas. And I would go to Chamber of Commerce meetings, and there were these independent business people breakfasts and stuff. And, everybody's dressed up in their suit, and I'm there, I'm wearing a suit and tie, but I'm broke as a bum, struggling. But, I go to these things and I present this image of success. And everybody else there was presenting an image of success. And I know that a lot of them were in the same position I was in. They didn't have 2 pennies to rub together, but they had some nice clothes they could put on and go to one of these meetings and, try to get something going. And when you're in an environment like that, and you're presenting yourself professionally, and you're trying to, enter into some sort of business arrangement with people, or present yourself as being eligible or available to enter into business arrangements, there's just a certain falseness. There's a certain fake happiness, fake friendliness, fake smiles, and overly cheery tone of voice, which is unwavering. And I don't enjoy that. That is unappealing to me. And that was the vibe I was getting at first in these podcasting rooms. But then we started talking about freedom of speech, and everybody dropped all of that and stated with conviction, how worried they were about the erosion of the freedom of expression, particularly online. Because they're all podcasters. They're all people who are, that's their thing. They express themselves online. I found that really refreshing. But then I thought, just looking around for podcasting stuff is still going to get me a lot of this, overly fake, too polished, happy face stuff that I find unappealing. So I started searching for stuff on science fiction. And I found various groups. And then I would just, start following people at random. And most people have their Twitter, they're a link to their Twitter and a link to their Instagram in their Clubhouse bio. And so I'm just sort of randomly clicking on, just following. And I find myself talking to this guy who is himself a podcaster. And he's also an author. And let me call up his website here. Let's see. The name of the podcast is Fully Automated, as in fully automated luxury communism. Let's see. Fully automated on Apple. Nope. Come on now. Let's try this. Oh, I don't want Apple. The guy has his own website. Why is it? It's searching for the actual name of the podcast. Okay. I'm on Yahoo. I hate it, but I'm going to Google. Let's see. Fully automated podcast. Professor Rick. And I'm having to go through all of this because I don't remember how to spell his last name. Alrighty. Here it is. All right. Hey, Colin, would you throw this up on screen? Thank you. Fully automated podcast. So, Occupy IR Theory. IR is international relations. And, so I saw that this guy was making this podcast. Here he is. Nicholas, and I haven't spoken to him in person yet. He's going to be on this live stream a week from today. Kiersey, I'm Irish American. It's shameful that I don't know how to pronounce that Irish name. But anyway, Occupy IR Theory. I just wrote to him on Instagram, just messaged him and said, hey, I was at Occupy Wall Street. It was 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago this fall. And at the time, I was pretty excited about it. I was pretty positive about what was going on. And in the last decade, I've pretty much taken an about face on that. And I think it was really misguided. And I think that at first, I didn't explain all this to him. I basically just said, I've had a change of heart. He said, me too. And we just started talking. And we've been, chatting back and forth for like 15, 20 minutes. And I see that this guy, he's doing a podcast called Fully Automated, which references fully automated luxury communism. And I see he's talking to some, leftist authors and activists and people. And I said, hey, you don't know Doug Lane by any chance, do you? And he said, Doug Lane, he's like my podcasting hero. So Doug Lane is somebody I've known for over a decade. In fact, I stayed with him at his place in Portland in 2010, 11 years ago. So he's, a podcasting comrade from the days of old, even though I'm not a leftist in that way and probably shouldn't use the word comrade so flippantly. But it's one of those, not even 6 degrees of separation. It's just like randomly poking around, following interesting links, and I end up just in a live chat with somebody, and it turns out that there's 1 degree of separation between us. And he's interviewed Ben Burgess, who I interviewed just like a week ago. So 1 degree of separation with multiple bridges. Anyway, I look forward to talking to him. I was listening to his podcast earlier today. It's good stuff. So you might check it out. Again, fully automated podcast, and the website is occupyirtheory.info. And he's an Irishman who lives in Texas, so close to the Mexican border that, well, he says he's pretty much in Mexico. I'd like to be in Mexico. I'd like to visit Mexico anyway. Alrighty. Back to anti-disestablishmentarianist. Anti-disestablishmentarianism is a minimalist. 6 Sigma 6. Haha, luxurious communist. 9 Delta 9, much better. What is 9 Delta 9? Let's see. Parker says, moving away from the free and open web with RSS. And Hero Cone says, I play trick on myself. I pretend I am rich man, pretend to be poor. This way I can fool people who think I am pretend to be poor. But I am poor. Now, are you really poor? I forget who said this. I think this was something I heard maybe from Thaddeus Russell or maybe one of his guests talking about how he lives, he's operating in an academic environment, and some grad student says to him, oh, I'm so poor. And he says, to this grad student, no, you're not. You're broke. But if you're a grad student, if you're pursuing a post-secondary degree, you're not poor. Poor is cultural. And there are poor people with money. And there are, I don't want to say rich, but, the middle class insensibility people who don't have any money, but they don't get to claim poverty. Like I myself, perpetually broke, except when I'm not. But I never call myself poor. All right, anybody else? Anything? Got 20 minutes left. Read some more. Or I could go back to talking about, what do we got here? Hiro says, yes, I live in Japan, so I am rich. But what better? Poor in a rich country or rich in a poor country? Well, rich in a poor country is more doors open to you. And anti-disestablishmentarianism minimalist says, man pretentiously pretends to be pretentious. Man pretentiously pretends to be pretentious. But can one really pretentiously pretend to be pretentious? Or is one being genuinely pretentious? Where is the line drawn? So, Hiro, are you Nihonjin desu ka? Watashi wa Nihon ni sunde imashita. Way back in the 1990s. Let's see. You missed my comment, says Parker. I worry about podcasting becoming a collection of walled gardens. Yeah. Hey, here's Mushroom Mike. Mike says, rich in a poor country could be more dangerous too. Well, yeah, if you're really rich and you're there in a poor country, you are a kidnapping risk. You are at risk of being kidnapped. If you're just walking around speaking English, with white skin in some countries, the locals see you as an ATM, and that gets old. Noah says, the only thing really worth a damn is healthy free time. If you ain't got that, you're poor. Amen, brother. Although, I'm in decent health, knock wood, and I have a healthy amount of free time. What I lack is human contact. I was ready to get the heck out of Dodge being Bellows Falls, Vermont. Just before the pandemic hit, I was making preparations to move to Puerto Rico, and then the pandemic locked everything down. And I've been it's just me and the cat in my apartment all day, every day, most days, and I'm definitely starved for a variety of human interfaces, exchanges, face to face. My New Year's resolution was not to go to the Shell station at the bottom of my hill, because none of the money there that I spend there improves my health. I was buying junk food and beer there primarily, so my 2021 resolution was not to go into that store. If I want a beer, I have to walk the length of the village to the supermarket, and I buy it there, and then I walk back to my apartment. Which I do. It's like 3,700 steps. Let's see. So 6 Sigma 6, I cannot continue to read that very long username you've chosen. Hi, Sodes. Now we actually have Hiro here in the chat who says he is in Japan. Let's see. Joshua writes, I'm writing my first sci-fi book. It's about the last gasps of capitalism and the rise of socialism and non-scarcity and what the human condition would be doing at that time or during that time. I would very much like to see that future. I don't have any faith that it's coming. There's a book by a sci-fi author named Linda Nagata. And what's it called? It's called The Boar Maker. And boar is just a proper noun, and maker is I forget if it's actually software or if it's the hardware AI or if it's the two together, but it's basically a technological seed for creating something, a maker. And in it, there is fully mature, molecular nanotechnology, which could be just a fountain of it could usher in a post-scarcity society, and yet it hasn't. And it hasn't because there are people, for whatever reason, want to keep other people poor. And it's a cynical look, it's a cynical take on things, but I can't say that it's wrong, given the world that I look at. Noah says, surely Vermont is filled with like-minded people up for a hike. Could be. What do you say to that, Colin? Is Vermont full of people up for a hike? Yeah, he says. Yeah, no, it is. It is definitely. I'm not saying I live in a desert. I'm saying that I don't make the necessary overtures to connect with people and actually set those sorts of things up. Six Sigma Six says, I took the longest English word and made it longer. Yes, yes, you did. And I said it a few times, and now I'm done. All right. Today, I was listening, last night when I was talking to Professor Professor Nick, I asked him, direct me to a couple, or direct me to a podcast of yours, which is a good introductory, example, a good introductory episode. And he directed me to his only two-parter. And I think it's episode number 26. So let's see if we can search the website here and find that, because I really enjoyed his conversation with the guest, and I didn't remember the guest's name. Here we go. Colin, did you throw this up on screen? So it's episode 26. There's a episode 26 part 1 and episode 6 part 2. Greetings, welcome to part 2 of episode 26, where we continue our interview with Adam Proctor. And the way Professor Rick was talking to Adam Proctor, it was as if Adam Proctor was, the more established or high status of the two of them. Neither one of them are, really known to me, so it's odd to sort of pick up on that, that psychological dynamic. But they had a very good conversation, and I would definitely, I would even say skip part 1 and just go to part 2. It's refreshing to me when I hear people who are, legitimately and seriously describe themselves as leftists or socialists or Marxists, pushing back on all this social justice signaling. Oh, goodbye, Alex. You're distracting your on-screen host, man. So anyway, they're making multiple references and deep references to Mark Fisher's Exiting the Vampire Castle essay from 2013, which I was talking about with Ben Burgess just the other day. That's a very good essay. In fact, I don't think we have enough time left. No, we don't have enough time. I will read that to you. Actually, I did read it. I read it on the Vault. I will actually take my recording of me reading it on the Vault and put it up on YouTube. Everybody should be familiar with this essay, and if you can't find the time or the energy or the focus to actually read it yourself, I will read it to you. All right, Noah says, what makes you think moving to Puerto Rico is going to release your inner social butterfly? Well, I live in a small rural village in Vermont right now, and for about the same amount of money, I could rent an apartment in San Juan, which is a proper city, and rent a space in a co-working space where other people would be working. And I would just be in proximity to other working people. I would have a shared working space. That was my thought. Now, I don't know. Don't know what I'm going to do. Noah says, that was Noah. Six Sigma says, anti-disestablishmentarianism is a position that advocates that a state church should continue to receive government patronage rather than be disestablished. Well, that just doesn't really apply to our situation, does it? Assuming you're an American. Because we never had a state church. It's part of the whole, startup mentality. No state church. Parker says, I've been watching some of a YouTuber named Vosh. I've heard references to Vosh recently. He has disagreements with other left-leaning folk. Yeah. Say more about that. Hikane says, keep the state far away from my church, laughing my ass off. Yeah. I'd say keep the U.S. federal government away from everybody's church, including the Church of the Rastafari. Everybody gets to pick their sacrament. Alrighty. All right, well, I'm gonna launch off into some other unstructured rant unless somebody gives me something to focus on. Speaking of science fiction, there is a new Star Wars show. It is on Disney Plus. I had just unsubscribed from Disney Plus because there wasn't going to be another Marvel show until June. And if I'm not going to watch it, I'm not going to pay for it. And then comes along the Bad Batch. And the Bad Batch is this group of mutant clones, supposedly defective, but they have special skills that make them useful. And there's 5 of them. 4 of them, they're so, out of whack with the rest of the clones that Order 66 didn't mean anything to them. And one of them followed Order 66. What do we got here? Enjoyed Shoe on Head. Thanks for the link, says Pleopod. You're welcome. I enjoy her too. I discovered her. She was a guest on Rising. 6 Sigma 6 says, Pipeline. Thoughts? Actually, let me continue with the Bad Batch. Bad Batch is Dave Filoni animated Star Wars universe. It starts off in the Clone Wars. In fact, it starts with the announcer voice, which was the beginning of all the Clone War episodes, and you see the red Clone Wars logo on screen, and then it burns away, and you've got the Bad Batch logo. It starts like when the show starts. The Clone War is wrapping up. We get Order 66, and thereafter, these clones who are not down with Order 66, like after Order 66. All the clones who had been these noble, heroic, selfless warriors are suddenly all assholes, except for these 5 guys. Actually, 4 of the 5. One of the 5 definitely gets the asshole vibe. And, they got to go off into the universe. And now all of the Clone Wars took place between episodes 2 and 3, between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. Actually, the last 4 episodes of season 7 of the Clone Wars takes place inside of Revenge of the Sith. But now we're past episode 3, and we're in that 20-year gap. We're at the very beginning of that 20-year gap between episodes 3 and 4, 4 being the original Star Wars, A New Hope. That is such fertile ground. There's so much space there. It has absolutely nothing to do with the Disney Star Wars sequel trilogy. That garbage is like 40, 50 years off in the future. So we don't have to contend with that at all. And this is the Star Wars that I live for now. Okay. Star Wars geekery out of the way. I will be resubscribing to Disney Plus so that I can see the Bad Batch every Friday. Mushroom Mike says, I read there will be a new Captain America where he is actually American, like a native or something. His name will be Joe Martinez. In the comic, there was a Native American Captain America, but right now, Captain America, at the end of Captain America and the Winter Soldier, it was the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and now it's Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Sam, who's the actor? Well, anyway, Falcon. From all of the Marvel films, all the Captain America films. He now is officially Captain America. Anthony Mackie, yes, thank you. Joshua writes, that's exactly the idea I was writing about, how corporations would be trying to suppress non-scarcity to be ushered in. Yeah, well, if you're selling something, what allows you to mark up the price? Scarcity, right? Or exclusivity, which is a sort of scarcity. So yeah, people who do well in the current system are going to do what they can to perpetuate the current system, even if that means, being an impediment to the end of scarcity. Hikani says, isn't Rogue One also in that gap? Rogue One ends 5 minutes before episode 4 begins. Really, the two just butt right up against each other. So yeah, it's at the very, very, very end of that 20-year period. Whereas the Bad Batch is at the very, very, very beginning of that 20-year period. Parker says, I don't think I can summarize it in a chat, maybe not even outside a chat. Parker, I think I missed one. Oh yes, he's describing a YouTuber named, what is it, Vosh? Vosh? How's it pronounced? Is it spelled? Anyway, Parker says, I mostly have enjoyed his videos of criticisms of right-wing YouTube folks, but a recent video addressing anti-woke leftists there was interesting nuance. I don't think I can summarize it in chat, maybe not even outside of chat. Vosh, V-A-U-S-H. Let's have a look. Whose YouTube account is this? A-U-S-H. B-A-U-S-H. Alrighty. Like the cover art for the channel. Nope. Sorry, Vosh, not playing your video. But we'll look at some titles. Peaceful protesters are being slaughtered in, I'm guessing, Myanmar. I have no idea where this conversation is going. Anti-woke leftists. Addressing anti-woke leftists. All right. That's from 2 days ago. I will watch that when this stream is over. All right. I'm not going to subscribe here, though, because I'm not logged in as me. Back to the chat. Six Sigma has changed his name back to Six Sigma, right? Kunstler is having doomgasms over the colonial pipeline, speculation over financial collapse, and electric grid next. Okay, this is the ransomware, right? Where I think it's fair to say Russian hackers. I mean, they're operating from Russia. Doesn't mean that they're definitely state sponsored, but they have run a ransomware operation on a gas pipeline somewhere. Here's the thing with betting on doom. If you're right, you'll never get to gloat, because all the people that were wrong, they will be separated from you by long distances. Whereas before you were connected via the internet, now it's all over. Let's see. Oh, Colombia is where the protesters are being shot, says Parker. Right. Actually, I had heard about that. I've actually been watching a lot of videos about moving to Colombia. First, I was watching videos about moving to Mexico, and then I started listening to this podcast, The Expat Files, by Johnny Mueller, who is in, where is he, Honduras, I think? Or is he Guatemala? He's in Guatemala. And he says, you're a sucker if you move to Mexico, or if you move to Panama, or if you move to Costa Rica, all the places where AARP says you can retire cheap. You're going to get scammed. You're going to get tracked. You're going to get gouged, gringo prices. You got to go further south if you want to get the real Latin American Plan B experience, he says. But he's not talking about so far south that you're in South America. But I've been to Peru many times. I don't think I want to live in Peru, but I'd give Colombia a try. Medellin looks, the temperature sounds amazing. Perpetual springtime, they call it. Hikane says, not a coincidence this happens while Congress is pushing infrastructure spending and doubling down on green energy. Think there's an inside angle there? He nods without hesitation, yes. Alrighty, Parker says the pipeline is very nearby. It goes right by some railroad in a park I go to. Ah. Six Sigma says, I prefer Harvard. You prefer Harvard over what for what? Let's see. Everybody, we're at about 2 minutes here. So last questions and comments. Get them in. I was at a yard sale, says Parker, a few days ago where they were about to move to Panama, so we're selling stuff. Yeah, Panama is one of those places where, and this is them just ripping off Johnny Mueller here. He says, if you have money, you can live anywhere. You can buy a protected, insulated bubble. You can move to Central or South America and never have to learn Spanish if you have money. But if you don't have that kind of money, he says, probably don't want to go to Panama because of the canal, because of longstanding American involvement, because of the Panama Papers. Panama is it's locked down. It is very much a surveilled security state, and you're not getting away with nothing in Panama. And you're going to pay like you'd pay if you lived in El Paso or, Albuquerque. Sigma 6 says, I like Harvard over Columbia. Ha, ha, ha. I get it. All right. The time is gone. Everybody, thank you very much. I will do this again next week, and I won't be just talking out my ass that time because I will have a guest. All right. Talk to you then.